I do stand by the idea that this movie's big advantage is that its story works and its characters work. And the characters don't really act out of character. And there's like a through line here and a story that came in like it has a beginning, middle, and end, and all of that. And I think that is really what elevates this from just being a collection of jokes. And I think Scary Movie and others modern spoof movies like this have the problem where there are just jokes and there's nothing else going on, and characters often act out of character just for the sake of the punchline, and there's barely continuity between scenes and that sort of thing. And I've always felt bored with that kind of movie because of that, because you just can't get invested in anything and nothing makes sense from 1 minute to next. And also jokes are typically not set up and paid off, where it's just one funny moment after the other. There's no build up and nothing develops over the course of the movie. I think that is why things like Scary Movie never quite worked for me. And that got worse as they went on. The first couple have a fairly coherent story, and I think they are the better ones for that reason. And the later ones have decent jokes, but I just don't enjoy them, and precisely because I can't get invested in anything. And here, I think the story hangs together from beginning all the way to the end. And I think the Naked Gun this year was kind of in between those two, where there's a lot of one-off jokes that don't really make sense from an in-story perspective, but there is a story. Like there's a villain with a plan and who gets stopped in the end and that sort of thing. And all the stronger moments are the ones who tie into that story structure, and the weaker ones are the ones that are just there, I thought, for their own sake. And I think this one leans very hard into this has to make sense in terms of what characters are doing and who they are. And like there's very little, I think, that outright doesn't pay off in some way, right? Like everything, like Poppy running off with the dung merchant and stuff like that. Like that's never reset. Like that keeps coming back, right? And stuff like that.
With the points that you made about like Scary Movie and Naked Gun, well, with the Scary Movie, was the story is kind of like already pre-established, but you already know what's going to happen. So when you say there's not a story there, what do you mean?
So like the first 2 or 3 Scary Movies are very close to the movies they're spoofing, and they have a story
Yeah.
that mostly makes sense from start to finish. And then once you go into the later Scary Movies and the other spoof movies, like I watched Epic Movie, I think, and I turned it off after like half an hour or 20 minutes because it was just incoherent nonsense. Even if some gags in there are kind of funny, nothing holds together, and there isn't a story and there aren't characters, is what I'm saying. And this one goes far into the other direction, and I think that means as a movie it's much better. And even if a couple of jokes don't work for you, the story still continues, and you can try again with the next joke 20 seconds later. I do think this is why this movie works as well as it does. Like most of the jokes are not that great, but they kind of work and they're funny enough, and then they're over very quickly, and then you're on to the next one. And if something doesn't work for you for a while, there's still the story there.